Imagine this. Everything you've been taught to believe about confidence, the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it's supposed to be displayed as, has been a carefully packaged illusion. You've seen it 1,000 times. The tall posture, the fixed gaze, the controlled, polished smile. You've been told that's strength, that's self-assurance. That's what you should be aiming for. But what if that's nothing more than a costume under the right lighting? What if, while you're standing there believing you're radiating certainty, someone across the room has already spotted the tiny fracture in your facade? Not because of the words coming out of your mouth, but because of the words you're too afraid to say. Because silence, when it's not born from deep calm, carries a scent. And that scent is fear. Fear is a master of disguise, but it's not perfect. Sooner or later, it slips through the cracks. And here's the twist: it might not even be your fear. You could have inherited it long before you even knew what it was. From a parent who never took risks. From a teacher who told you not to embarrass yourself. From that humiliating moment in childhood when a mistake was met with laughter instead of understanding. And since that day, without realizing it, you've been walking around with an invisible warden living inside your head. This warden watches everything, every word you say, every movement you make, every facial expression you give. It whispers rules into your mind. Don't talk too much. Don't admit when you don't know something. Don't let anyone see doubt in your eyes. It convinces you that if you can just be flawless, if you can just appear untouchable, then no one will ever see your human side. And you obey it, thinking this is what it means to be confident. But it isn't. It's not confidence, it's fear, neatly dressed in a suit and tie. The real blow is this: true confidence has nothing to do with appearing perfect. In fact, the more energy you pour into seeming flawless, the further you drift from it. Real confidence doesn't need the performance. It doesn't need to win the room. It doesn't need to control the conversation. It doesn't even need to be loud. It's the kind of quiet presence that unsettles the insecure because it can't be rattled. And if you don't have it, it shows. Insecurity has a way of seeping out silent, invisible, but just as dangerous as a gas leak, slowly suffocating your credibility. You can't mask it forever because eventually the people who know what to look for will smell it before you even open your mouth. Here's the part most people don't want to face. They've confused acting with courage. They think that by holding themselves together in front of others, by keeping their voice steady, by looking the part, they're showing strength. But that's not strength. That's theater. It's a stage you've built in your mind, and you've been performing on it for so long you've forgotten it's an act. You're reciting lines you've rehearsed for years, lines you know will get approval, lines you know won't get you laughed at or criticized. But the truth is, the audience you've been trying to impress probably isn't even watching. And if they are, they're not seeing you. They're seeing the character you invented to protect yourself. The problem with this ego theater is that it's exhausting. It demands that you stay in costume at all times. It forces you to keep the lights on even when the show is over, to keep smiling even when no one's clapping, to keep delivering lines even when the room is empty. And when the curtain finally falls, you feel it, the emptiness that no amount of applause can fill. Because deep down, you know that applause was never meant for you. It was meant for the version of you that you've been pretending to be, the one who plays it safe, the one who hides their real self behind a script. What almost no one realizes is that real confidence is never built from the outside in. It isn't born from how others see you. It isn't crafted by likes, compliments, or the number of people who seem impressed. It's cultivated quietly, in the moments when no one is there to cheer you on. It's a root that digs deep into who you really are, and it doesn't need an audience to survive. It's not armor you put on, it's the ground you stand on. And when you have it, you can walk into a room where everyone is hoping to see you fail, and you won't flinch. You can hear criticism and not let it shake your sense of self. You can make a mistake in front of everyone and still walk away with your dignity intact. You can say no knowing full well it might cost you friendships or opportunities, and yet feel no regret. But here's the cost almost no one is willing to pay. To have that kind of freedom, you have to kill the need for validation. You have to be willing to let go of the comfort that comes from being liked. You have to accept something most people spend their lives running from, the fact that you don't matter to others as much as you think you do. And the moment you truly understand this, when you realize no one is watching you as closely as you imagine, that no one is stopping their life to celebrate your victories or destroy you for your failures, you'll feel something unusual. It's not relief, it's vertigo. That dizzy, unsettling sense that the stage you've been standing on all your life has disappeared. That you can move in any direction now, but there's no script, no lines to read, no lights to hide behind. You can do anything, and if you fail, nothing happens. That moment, that spinning sensation in your gut, is the doorway to real confidence. But here's why so few ever walk through it. Because freedom without a script is terrifying. It means you're no longer performing. And if you're no longer performing, there's no safety net. You're just you. And most people would rather stay under the lights, reciting safe lines, than risk stepping into that raw, unprotected space where the truth of who they are is all that's left. Living under the constant gaze of others is far more corrosive than most people ever admit. It's not just about the obvious choices you avoid making for fear of what people will say. It's about the slow, almost invisible erosion of who you are. Every single time you bend your words, your tone, or your actions to earn approval, a piece of your real self shrinks. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, it even feels rewarding. External validation is intoxicating. It gives you a rush, a quick hit of belonging, the illusion that you're exactly where you're meant to be. But like any addiction, the high fades faster and faster, and before you know it, you need a bigger dose each time just to feel the same level of acceptance. That's when the cycle tightens its grip. You start tailoring yourself more aggressively, cutting off edges, rounding out corners, reshaping the very parts of you that made you different in the first place, all to fit into molds designed by other people. And here's the cruel irony. The people you've been working so hard to impress rarely even remember what you did to catch their attention. If you woke up tomorrow and completely reinvented yourself, most wouldn't notice, and even fewer would care. Yet, you've been molding yourself to meet their expectations, as if their opinions were the final word on your worth. In doing so, you've been living on borrowed ground, land that doesn't belong to you, land that can be taken away the moment someone's opinion shifts. Real confidence can't survive there. For it to grow, you need your own ground, even if that means losing your place at certain tables. That's the part most people can't stomach. Being willing to not fit in, being willing to feel like an outsider in certain rooms. It's not about rebelling for the sake of rebellion, but about protecting your soul from being sold off piece by piece for the privilege of acceptance. Think of all the times you've agreed with something you didn't believe in just to avoid sticking out, all the fake smiles you've worn to keep the peace, all the moments you've swallowed your truth because the cost of speaking it seemed too high. That's not harmless. That's the slow, suffocating death of authenticity. And the longer you live in that compromise, the harder it becomes to even remember what the unfiltered version of you looked like. Both psychology and philosophy have already handed you the map to freedom, and the coordinates are always the same, your internal locus of control. That quiet, stubborn conviction that your worth isn't determined by applause, that your failures aren't life sentences, and that your existence isn't a performance for others to review. But understanding it isn't enough. Living this way demands that you build a tolerance for discomfort. Because when you finally stop chasing validation, you begin to notice something unsettling: the silence. The absence of constant approval. No more daily applause. No more stream of likes and compliments to reassure you that you're on the right path. Just you and the quiet voice inside your head that now has no competition. And if you've spent your whole life drowning that voice out with noise, this silence will feel unbearable. Most people can't handle it. They run back to the comfort of the crowd because that's where the questions they've been avoiding can't reach them. The questions like, is the life I'm living truly mine, or just an echo of what others expected of me? Do I actually believe the things I defend, or are they just borrowed opinions I've worn for so long they feel like my own? These are the questions where real confidence is born, not in motivational slogans, not in staged power poses, but in the raw, sometimes ugly process of choosing your own judgment over the safety of consensus. And make no mistake, standing in that choice often leaves you alone. It forces you to accept that some people will quietly admire you from a distance, but many more will resent you. Not because you've harmed them, but because your freedom is a mirror that forces them to see the chains they refuse to break. This is where the temptation to perform comes rushing back. You'll be mocked, criticized, or dismissed, and the ego will try to seduce you into acting like you don't care. But pretending you're unaffected is just another mask. The real work is in truly not being affected, in seeing criticism for what it is, a reflection of someone else's fears and insecurities, not as a final judgment on your value. And as sweet as approval can feel, you must learn to taste it for what it is, a dangerous candy that, once you get used to, can control your every move. The moment you finally choose authenticity over approval, everything changes. You give up the image the world has built for you. You step out of competitions that were never yours to begin with. You end the exhausting negotiations with yourself to adapt to a chorus of external voices. At first, the world feels colder and quieter, but that quiet is the first sign you've found your way back to yourself. In that space, you begin to notice just how much of you was never actually you at all. Mannerisms copied from people you admired, opinions lifted from authority figures you trusted, beliefs you never questioned because they came wrapped in familiarity. And in that brutal clarity, you see it, you've been living inside a character someone else wrote for you. That's when real confidence stops being about building something and starts becoming about tearing something down. You have to destroy the false layers to uncover the real. And yes, that destruction hurts. Not because the false self was ever good, but because it clung to you like skin. Letting it go feels like stripping away protection. But here's the paradox: the people who are truly secure are the ones who can stand in their ignorance without flinching. They can say, "I don't know," without fearing it will collapse their worth. They treat mistakes as opportunities to grow, not as stains to hide. Meanwhile, the insecure will go to any length to hide a crack in their image. They see admitting a weakness as surrender, when in truth, it's the root that feeds on those cracks and becomes stronger. Confidence isn't built in the moments you whine, it's built in the moments you could lose and still keep moving. That's why those who truly trust themselves don't fight every battle. They choose. They walk away without drama when it's not worth it, not because they can't fight, but because they know they don't need to. These people move quietly in a world obsessed with noise. They aren't chasing attention, but when they speak, people listen. When they act, the room shifts. They understand that the point is not to collect endless small victories, but to move only when it truly matters. And to live like that, you have to kill the hunger for constant recognition, over and over again, because the temptation to return to the stage never fully disappears. A compliment, an offer of praise, a tempting invitation to perform it will come again. And in that moment, you decide whether you step back into the theater or keep walking toward the place where the only applause that matters is your own. And when you reach that place, you understand that confidence isn't about how many people remember you when you leave the room. It's about the peace you feel knowing you could disappear without explanation and still be whole. That's the moment you become free. Freedom isn't doing what you want whenever you want, it's doing it without needing to justify it to anyone. It starts in the smallest moments. In the next conversation where you could pretend and choose not to. In the next time your voice trembles and you let it tremble instead of hiding it. Because that trembling is not weakness, it's the birth of something unshakable. And when you live from that place, the question that once terrified you becomes your anchor. If tomorrow no one could see you, would you still be the same person you're trying to show today?